tale you're about to hear is an original by me. Since I am of the Ukwuani tribe in the midwestern part of Nigeria, West Africa, you can say that this is where the story originates. I had intended to retell the story of the disobedient girl who married a skull, which is from eastern Nigeria, but to explore a deeper Catholic truth, I created this version. Many years ago, a middle-aged man, Eyime, lived with his wife in a small town called Okolori. They had a daughter, Ossai, and as responsible parents, they did everything they could to raise her uprightly. Osai was strikingly beautiful with a fashion sense that accentuated her head-turning hourglass figure. Her gait was poised and elegant, and she spoke eloquently and with class. All the girls wanted to emulate her, and all the men wanted to marry her. Unfortunately, Osai allowed the admiration to inflate her ego, becoming a superficial young woman who believed that the world belonged to her. Eyime and his wife realized this and called her aside from time to time to offer advice. They urged her to understand that life was fleeting, that nothing lasted forever, and that humility and substance mattered far more than haughty pride and ego. Osai would nod politely, lips tight in acknowledgement, but the moment their backs were turned, she would tilt her head, smirk, and roll her eyes, as if mocking every word they had just said. Months passed, and it became clear that Osai had not changed her ways. Concerned for her future and for the lessons she was yet to learn, Eyime and his wife decided to arrange her marriage, hoping it would teach her to care for others and embrace responsibility. The following week, they brought many suitors to her, but she rejected them all. "He is too short," she would complain. "He is too poor. He is too ugly, I can't be seen by his side. He is too young, I won't respect him. He is too old. I can't stand his voice. I don't like how he walks. He has no sense of fashion." And on it went. Eyime and his wife began to lose hope that their daughter would ever marry. Some of the suitors, frustrated and insulted, met one afternoon to discuss their grievances. They decided to teach her a lesson and give her exactly what she was asking for. 2 weeks later, one cold evening, there was a knock at the door. When Eyime opened it, he saw a stranger. He had a charming smile and was very polite. When Eyime asked him who he was looking for, he announced his intention to marry Osai. Eyime instinctively looked away slightly, shaking his head and waving his hand briskly, saying, "Do not bother. My daughter has rejected and embarrassed every suitor we have brought to her." However, his wife persuaded him to allow Osai to meet the stranger. They invited him in and asked him to sit, but he said he would not sit until he met Osai. Eyime called for her. The instant she walked out and set eyes on the stranger, she was mesmerized. Spellbound, she beheld his tall frame adorned in very expensive clothes, exuding his masculinity and youth. He was the most handsome man she had ever seen. "It is a pleasure to meet you, Osai. I have come to ask for your hand in marriage." His baritone voice caused her heart to race, and she wore a broad, uncontrollable smile. Eyime, astonished, asked for clarity. "Do you accept his proposal?"
Yes.
"Yes," she replied. Eyme's brows shot up. His wife's mouth hung slightly agape. Eyime turned to the stranger and asked for his name and place of origin. "I'm Ejibunlo, and I'm from Ilolo." Eyime tilted his head slightly, finding the name unusual and the town unfamiliar. He asked Ejibunlo to return the following week so they could have the wedding. The following day, Eyime announced to the community that his daughter had finally chosen a suitor. They were happy and agreed to attend the wedding. Eyme's longtime friend, Usugo, asked him about the stranger. When Eyime told him his name and where he came from, Usugo made a face. He pondered for some seconds, then told Eyime not to allow Osai to marry the man. Eyime squinted, then asked why. Usugo replied that the man's name and his stated place of origin tell a troubling tale. Osai got upset from overhearing their conversation. She told Usugo not to poison her father's mind against Ejibunlo simply because she had rejected his son. Osugo asked them to heed his concerns, but Ossai grew angry and declared that nothing would stop her from marrying Ejibunlo. By the following week, the wedding took place and everyone from Okolori, including the former suitors, were present. Eime blessed Ossai and Ejibunlo and asked him to take care of his daughter. The former suitors chuckled and murmured, "He will take care of her indeed." After the ceremony, Ejibunlo spent the night with them. The next day, just before dawn, Ejibunlo took Ossai on his horse. They bid her parents farewell and rode away. They rode for hours until Ossai eventually grew weary and frustrated. She finally asked, "How long until we'll get home?" "I am always home," he replied casually. Ossai pulled a face and replied, "I am not in the mood for jokes. Please tell me. We've been riding for hours and I'm hungry and tired." "I wasn't joking," he replied. "I am home. I live here. I live there. I live everywhere. Anywhere. At any time. And at every time." The way he sounded startled her. It was as if her former suitors took turns speaking through him. "I can hear what you are thinking, you know." She began to tremble when he told her what she was thinking. With a tremulous tone, she asked him, "Who really are you?" He replied, "I already told you, I'm Ejibunlo from Ilolo." "Where is Ilolo? When will we get there?" she shot back. "We are already there," he replied. "We never left there. We got married there, spent the night there, and we have been there all these hours we've been riding." "What?" Her brow shot up with the certainty that she was in trouble. "You don't get it yet, do you?" he replied. "When I say I'm Ejibunlo, I mean that I am manifest illusion." Suddenly, the horse vanished from beneath them, and they stood facing each other. Ossai was startled by what just happened. Sweat streamed down her quivering face. He continued, "And when I say I'm from Ilolo, I mean I'm born from the imagination of the suitors you rejected. They held a seance and formed me from their minds with all the attributes you couldn't find in them. They created the perfect man for you. Me." With labored breaths, Ossai swallowed with a lot of effort while her heart raced as she staggered backwards helplessly. "Take me back home," she requested with a faint quivering voice. But Ejibunlo told her he couldn't do that as they were no longer in the physical realm, they were in the mental realm. She fell on her knees with hands together and her face oriented towards him with teary eyes, begging to be set free, as she would not make a good wife because of her horrible attitude. But he replied that he was content, as he had already fulfilled his purpose, and that her being a bad girl or a good girl was immaterial. She looked around and realized that the atmosphere was already gloomy and dark, despite still being afternoon. They were also alone. She recalled Osugo's discouragement of her marrying Ejibunlo and the times she mocked her parents' counsel. She began to scream and cry and beg for forgiveness. Ejibunlo stood still like a mannequin and never spoke again. He slowly began to fade away visually with every passing minute until he was no more barely 6 minutes later. Ossai was alone in this gloomy environment for days on ending. 6 months later, Osugo's son, guilt-ridden, confessed his errors to Osugo and to Osai's parents after seeing how worried they were about not receiving any message from their daughter for so long. Osugo felt responsible for his son's actions, and to atone for his son's wrongdoing, he led a search party for Ossai. They searched extensively with no success. 2 months later, they found her many kilometers away from Okolori, disheveled, skinny, and terrified. Her clothes were tattered, and she stank, wandering about in the forest far from Okolori. She had become a shadow of her former self. With a blank stare, she spoke only one word every other hour: Ilolo. Osugo explained to Eime that what his son did to his daughter was an ancient ritual that was performed to create a person who appeared real but was an ideoplasm. The ideoplasm always offered a name that meant illusion and a name that meant daydream, for his hometown. This was the Ideoplasm's way of allowing its victims to evade what it was sent to do, which is to trap the mind and make the body a shell of itself. It was deliberately odd. If the person was perceptive, they would avoid the trap, but if they weren't, they would fall for it. But you seem to be too eager to get your daughter out of the house, and Ossai was too superficial and wouldn't heed my warning. So, no one could save her from this. Ame, with tears in his eyes, asked whether there was a remedy, but Osugo replied that they could now only rely on the values Ame had instilled in her as a child. If she could remember them and feel genuine remorse for her insolence, she might regain her sanity. Otherwise, she would remain insane. Ossai, after another 3 months under her parents' care, snapped out of her trance. She embraced her parents tightly and cried uncontrollably. She had regretted her actions, which tormented her while she was trapped in the mental realm, and was eager to apologize to all the former suitors she had ridiculed and to her parents for not listening to their counsel. Her strong desire to do so was overwhelming, jolting her into regaining her mental faculties. From that day onward, Ossai became humbler and treated everyone with respect. For the moral of the story, we learn that when beauty becomes the foundation of self-worth, it can breed pride, contempt for others, and poor judgment, and make one vulnerable to deception by evaluating life solely by appearance. Intense love for material things can blind us to the spiritual dangers associated with them. Parents must learn to be patient in molding their children rather than seek ways to pass the problem off to someone else. The story reinforces the African cultural moral that ignoring age-old wisdom drawn from the elders' lived experiences invites avoidable suffering. If something is too good to be true, then it probably is. We must beware of potential suitors who appear flawless. It might be a Trojan horse to get into your world, so they destroy you later. Those who judge life by appearances may be conquered by illusion, but those who listen, reflect, and repent can reclaim themselves. Did you draw any morals I must have left out? Share them with us in the comment section. When we return, we shall look at the quiz.
Odili, the seeker of truth.
For the quiz, question 1. Was Eime's decision to get Ossai married the right decision to correct her bad behavior? A. Yes, when she gets married, she will be focused and will be more responsible. B. No, she will make life more difficult for her husband and her children. C. No, they were trying to be free of dealing with Ossai's problematic behavior. Option A may be true for some people and false for some others. Option B is true if she still doesn't change her ways. Option C is true for what Ame and his wife were trying to do. Although the scenarios in all three options are true, the most accurate answer regarding the story is option C. Question 2. Was Ossai's inadequate character evidence of Ame and his wife failing as parents? A. Yes, it is. B. No, her behavior is not their fault. C. Ossai is to blame for her own bad behavior. According to the story, Ame raised Ossai to be an upright person, but her ego got the best of her from people's admiration. If you chose options B and C, you are correct. To draw Catholic insights from this story, the characters in the story can be archetypes. Ame and his wife represent Christians who, while running a great race, gradually lose their perseverance. Their daughter Ossai represents the Christian who tries to live according to the world rather than for God. Osugo represents the church in guiding the faithful. Osugo's son and the other suitors represent those who practice magic and wickedness. The Ideoplasm represents the consequences of our evil when we do not heed the church and decide to follow our worldly ways. In relation to Ossai's inflated ego and conceitedness, Proverbs chapter 31 verse 30. Charm is deceitful and beauty is vain, but a woman who fears the Lord is to be praised. Catholic theology teaches that when desire is detached from truth, it creates false images of happiness, which is what the story represents as the Ideoplasm. In relation to Ossai vehemently resisting Osugo's warning, Proverbs chapter 14, verse 12. There is a way which seems right to a man, but its end is the way to death. In relation to Ime and his wife hoping Ossai's married life would do what they were unable to, and as a result didn't listen to Osugo's warning, you can look to the Catechism of the Catholic Church 1783. Conscience must be informed and moral judgments enlightened. A well-formed conscience is upright and truthful. It formulates its judgments according to reason, in conformity with the true good willed by the wisdom of the Creator. The education of conscience is indispensable for human beings who are subjected to negative influences and tempted by sin to prefer their own judgment and to reject authoritative teachings. In relation to Osai insulting her former suitors and instigating them to create the Ideoplasm and the eventual outcome from their actions, we can look to Jeremiah chapter 17, verses 9 and 10. The heart is deceitful above all things and desperately corrupt. Who can understand it? I, the Lord, search the mind and try the heart, to give every man according to his ways, according to the fruits of his doings. From the Catechism of the Catholic Church 1849, sin is an offense against reason, truth, and right conscience. It is failure in genuine love for God and neighbor, caused by a perverse attachment to certain goods. It wounds the nature of man and injures human solidarity. It has been defined as an utterance, a deed, or a desire contrary to the eternal law. In relation to Osai's rendezvous with the Ideoplasm, can look to the Catechism of the Catholic Church 409. This dramatic situation of the whole world, which is in the power of the evil one, makes man's life a battle. In relation to Osai's remorse and repentance, we can look to Psalm 51, verse 17. The sacrifice acceptable to God is a broken spirit. A broken and contrite heart, O God, thou wilt not despise. Proverbs chapter 22 is a valuable reflection for the entire story. A prudent man sees danger and hides himself, but the simple go on and suffer for it. The reward for humility and fear of the Lord is riches and honor and life. Thorns and snares are in the way of the perverse. He who guards himself will keep far from them. Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. He who sows injustice will reap calamity, and the rod of his fury will fail. He who has a bountiful eye will be blessed, for he shares his bread with the poor. Drive out a scoffer, and strife will go out, and quarreling and abuse will cease. He who loves purity of heart, and whose speech is gracious, will have the king as his friend. The mouth of a loose woman is a deep pit. He with whom the Lord is angry will fall into it. Folly is bound up in the heart of a child, but the rod of discipline drives it far from him. Do you have any other stories I can tell to draw out a theological lesson? Share it with us in the comment section.
Odili, the seeker of truth.